the A6 one is different, so we should just look into the A6 version. I mean, we haven't had a lot of requests for that, but easy enough for us to do. So
it's going live still. It just went live, so YouTube was taking its sweet time there to come on. All right.
Someone's asking about our Super Duper Charger ETA. Super Duper Charger is our upgraded 84 mil. 84 mil
throttle body for the B8S4, B8.5. Well, 3 liter. I mean, we'll do Q5 and A6, A7 as well.
With a cast aluminum housing to relocate the throttle body and create a nice flow path. We are supposed to have the sample casting prototype soon, any day now. So we're thinking, we don't have an ETA for release, but we're thinking probably, in Q1, hopefully, we should be ready to go.
Yeah, and it really depends. We're kind of at the mercy of the test and rinse and repeat cycle here. We're waiting on production samples. If everything's good, it'll be, obviously much sooner than if it's not. So
yeah. Hang in there. Hopefully in 2 or 3 months, if all testing and supply goes well, we should have something by then. Can you explain or do a video on how to use the 034 data log tool?
Yep, we certainly can. There's a lot actually changing right now. We're almost, I'd say we're about 75% through a complete rewrite of it to add a bunch more features and just kind of get a better code base under it. So once that's done, we'll probably put together a little more thorough rundown of how to do it, because we're adding a bunch of little tweaks to it to let you run different logging groups and some other creature comforts for depending on what you're running. So it'll have things like fault code clearing and adaption running and all.
I mean, that could be, we can leverage some of the other guys on staff to do that.
Yep. So once that's in a better place, that'll be getting some attention and some more documentation and video around it.
And then someone's asking about the relative metrics to pay attention to. You want to talk real quick for a
It really depends on the platform.
There's a lot to.
Yeah, it's a lot to absorb. Coffee too. The relative metrics depend on what you're looking for and what kind of information you're after. It really depends on the platform. All of the logging we do is done in native variables for that ECU and that platform. So there's a bit of knowledge you kind of need to get your head around to know what you're looking at. We try and include descriptions for the variables and everything where we can. So I mean, yeah, it's tough. Depending on what data you're trying to verify and look at, we can certainly assist and help. And this is going to come also down to some of the changes I mentioned. We're going to have a little bit easier to select logging groups, so you can do like a fueling specific group or a timing or an overall kind of engine health check and kind of help narrow in on things there. What to look at and how to look at the logs. That's a little more in depth. We certainly will review your logs for free and kind of let you know, or if you have any questions about stuff, we can go over it. But we can certainly go over more specifics. I think it's tough to generalize and answer on that one.
Yeah, no, there's a lot more to talk about there. Someone's asking, when is 034 releasing limited edition Crocs in that swaggy black and yellow? I think Nick Scambaluri will have lots of effects on our products. That's probably not one of them. But you will see Nick's crockiness come through in many of our tunes and calibrations. And even now, Nick's working on our. We've taken way too long to release this our Daza Stage 2 tune, but we will be releasing that soon.
Yep, he's getting that wrapped up now.
And so he's making some last minute tweaks on it, and he did all the dyno testing for our Daza 4-inch intakes as well. Yep. So Nick has been very busy since he's been here, and will continue to be. So someone's asking, why are people on Facebook saying 034 tuned S4s blow up? Well, that's a good question. We'd like to know that as well.
Yeah, we have a lot of tuned S4s. So.
Yeah, so we've seen this thread in one of the BA groups, and we've responded to it. We take the accusation or reality of our tune damaging someone's motor very seriously. We always have. What's happening is, the fastest cars are running 034 tunes, the world record cars, and then subsequent, cars are backing up the world record. And so we have a lot of people going really fast, pushing this platform really hard. And, so people want to go the fastest, but at some point you start reaching limits. These cars, many of them are older and have worn components. So invariably, are people's engines failing with our tune? Yes. Were those people wearing shoes when the failures happened? Yes. Are people's shoes blowing up motors? No. So, there's some loose correlations being made, and I think a lot of it's just trolling. We are working hard to talk to anyone who's had an engine-related problem who run our tunes and evaluate their experience and what happened.
Yep.
We're finding that, so far, anyone that we've been able to speak to who has either reached out to us or we've heard and we've reached out to them have not had engine failures related to tuning.
Yeah, there's so many things. I mean, we're pushing almost double the power through these motors. It's your margin for error and what it can tolerate for aging components or any kind of outside the margins hardware. It just gets thinner and thinner the more power you make.
Yeah, I mean,
depending on just so many factors outside of our control. Well, there's wearables.
Yeah,
there's lots of unseen potential issues. No matter how well you maintain your car, no matter how meticulous you can be about things, there's stuff inside the manifolds, inside the motor. Intercooler cores have been known to come apart in these. You've got just a myriad of things that are not necessarily anything to do with maintenance, but it's something that you should probably start looking at as the motors age.
So I mean, there are factory B5S4s that are having these failures.
B8
Does that?
S4s.
What did I say?
B5.
Oh, B8 S4s that are having these failures. Does that mean that the factory ECU tuning is causing those failures? Right. No. I mean, so there's just I don't know what the motivation is behind some of the people that are trying to stir this drama. Mm-hmm. There hasn't been anything of substance to show or connect us to that. The good news is a lot of people are running our tunes, and a lot of people are going really fast. And what we're starting to see, and we discussed this about a month ago.
And reliably going really fast.
Yeah, very reliably. Like going to the track and doing 10, 20, 30, 11s, low 11s pulls. That's impressive that you can do that.
And we were
with
there,
any car.
3 weeks ago. We were there. I think we did 20, 30 passes or 20 some passes just back to back to back to, with way higher launch RPMs and whatnot than most are running, just because we're doing a bunch of media for it. No hiccups, no issues at all.
And then the biggest issue that we're seeing that we'd like to address is that our tunes are sold with a certain set of modification and specifications, right? So our given stage tune has a set of required or recommended. Yep. They're not recommended; they're required products. But if we sell a tune that's for a 190 pulley and you run a 207 with a ported supercharger, you're going to make a lot more power. There's no question about it. But at some point, you're one, going outside the limits of what we've deemed safe, tested, and engineered, and two, you're going closer and closer to the limits of what the motor is capable of. We have customers putting down 450, 500 wheel. That's a 540 wheel. I mean, that's crazy on a stock motor that came from the factory with less than 350. So people are doing like more than double at the crank power. People are going to lift the heads. They're going to bend runs. It's starting to happen. So I would say for anyone out there who's concerned about tunes blowing up motors, when a tune blows up a motor, typically, almost always, the thing that happens is either the piston ringlands melt, or the valves melt or break, or you melt spark plugs. Right. So this is related to a less than optimal level of timing.
Yeah, it's usually
EGTs that are too high.
an advance issue, like an ignition advance or
Sure.
or
Pre-detonation.
a fueling target issue where you're running the motor really lean for some reason deliberately. And then another thing a lot of people are chiming in on that don't really have a grasp of how these things work. I've seen people say if you have an upgraded throttle body, you don't have a rev limiter anymore. The engine can rev to the moon. That was coming up several times in some.
Why would that be?
There's assumptions. There's assumptions that we turn off, or all the tuners turn off all the safeties and all the fail safes of the factory ECU. And I mean, we don't turn off any of them. So
in fact, we go through a lot of effort to ensure that they're updated and continue to be valid and functional for the new updated modifications.
Correct. To the point where people get frustrated with us because our tune might pop an EPC light more than some other tunes. That's because we keep those misfire checks.
But if that doesn't come on, then the safety feature's not working.
Right. So if you have a question about what safety nets are there, how we tune things, specifically, feel free to ask. You can also see it in all of our data. We offer open data logging solutions for all of our, anybody on our software. So all the safety measures are there. We do everything we can to keep these as robust and OEM like tuned as possible. But there's just stuff that no ECU in the world could necessarily account for or take care of. And then there's other things where we'll get reports from people. It's like, my car's throwing an EPC light, and they're just like trying to drive through it, and they're continuing to hammer on the thing, or they're getting these misfires, and they're just continuing to try and like eke everything out of the car and just drive onto it through it. You got to step back and figure out the issue. There's something more going on that we need to we can help you address. We need to get the data around it. Take your time, step back, and we'll help you get it sorted out.
So I'll just finish with, if you see someone saying this, ask them for more information, because we'd certainly like to see it.
Yeah, another thing that's popping up was that our latest tunes are much more aggressive on fueling on 93, which is
they're not.
They're not. That fueling hasn't changed in years now.
Yeah. There's nothing in the fueling that needed to change.
No.
And I don't think there's no such thing as aggressive in tuning. I mean, there's certain kinds of risks you can take, which we don't ever take risks with our production tunes. If we were at an event trying to win a dyno, competition, we might get aggressive, whatever that means. But on a production tune, there's no such thing as aggressive. There's an optimized calibration that gets the most power with the least chance of failure.
Yeah.
And that's what we're always targeting. So anyways, ask for evidence. If someone says that, if someone claims they blew their motor on our tuning, please tell them to contact us, because we'd love to talk to them.
We have to date had zero correlation of
credible anything.
Of any of these motors that supposedly have gone on our software that actually links back to anything to do with any software, core software issue. And we've got thousands of people running the software, so it's.
But I think what we've seen in these threads is, nobody has been able to prove any or provide any substantive information on what supposedly happened or blew or whatever. And there are some guys out there that are pushing these tunes really hard that are experiencing various failures. And I think it's more just trolling, saying so-and-so had engine failure and they were running your tuning, so your tune blows up motors, which is just, not good logic at all. So,
unless we have any information or even, these cars are getting older. You've got to maintain and stay ahead of some stuff.
Yeah, I want to be careful though. We're never going to blame a bad tune on old cars.
No. It's more just any car that comes with the territory. It's a maintenance and
unfortunately though, so many other tuners use that excuse of, someone has a problem with the product and they say, "Oh, your car's old." That's not what we're doing.
There's no reason you can't run these.
That's not what we're doing
on these. It's more just take a look and inspect some things. As these cars age, it's going to be a common thing.
And there's certainly we can do more to educate people on what to look for, but I don't care if your motor has 10,000 miles on it or 200,000 miles. If the ringlands are melted and your valves break in half, that's not because of the motor's age. That's because you had too high of a combustion chamber, and the tune should have shut things down far before then.
Right.
And that's what our tuning will do to a degree, but you have to be within the specifications. So if you're running 3 extra pounds of boost than we engineered it for,
Right.
we it's going to run great and you'll make power, but we can't guarantee that's going to be as safe as something that we would release.
Yep.
So, it's I don't know. You could go buy a Ford Raptor. It doesn't mean you can jump it 30 feet in the air. And there's lots of videos online of people doing that.
It's the landing that gets you.
So just because you can do something doesn't mean that's what the thing was designed for. And we are very extremely confident that if someone buys our tune and they have all the right parts and they run it with all our specifications, it will be extremely fast, extremely reliable, and they will not have any of these type of failures, barring the potential OEM aging failure that is inevitably going to happen on every 3.0T. So, all right, that's enough about that. Someone's asking B9 3.0T and 2.9T tuning. Good news. As of tomorrow,
Later today.
yeah, we will be actively tuning the B9 S4 3.0T.
Well, as far as getting started, yeah, probably tomorrow.
Yes.
Yep.
So this is something we've been leading up to for a while, and so we have a very scheduled engineering approach. So, we will be starting on this basically later today and tomorrow, and we're in a good position to engineer and develop this tune now, having gathered all the tools and IP that we need to do it. So, we anticipate good progress on initially the 3.0T tune. And, our goal is to release something this spring, which is very fast for us, historically speaking.
Yep.
But representative of our current tuning engineering capabilities that we have at 034 Motorsport now.
Yeah.
So,
And we brought in a lot of these capabilities in this last few months to help push these forward.
I mean, we basically have like 5 or 10 times more engineering capabilities than we did
more
2 months ago. So it's very exciting, and we can finally say that we are working on B9 3.0T, and ZF8 TCU tuning will be a part of that as well.
B9 as well.
Yes.
Yep, that's AL552. We'll work on that as well.
As far as remote flashing,
Yep, that's the plan.
we are upgrading our server to do that as well.
All in process.
So stay tuned. We really appreciate your guys' patience. Our goal is to go out and release a world-class product that sets world records and things like that. So that's what we'll be pushing to do. What are some symptoms I can take a look at to get in front of the leaking supercharger intercoolers?
There's a number of them. You'll typically see loss of coolant to start with.
From the coolant system?
Yeah. Your coolant will drop mysteriously. You'll usually have no idea where it's going. You actually, these, I don't know if most of the people, if you don't smell much either, it's kind of a slow weep. As it gets worse and worse, you'll start getting misfires on given cylinders. So there's a number of things that can normally indicate it. And then you've really got to kind of either, pop the manifold off and take a look at the cores themselves if you suspect anything, and then you'll see, typically you'll see signs of it in the runners of the manifold.
Yeah.
But yeah, coolant loss, misfires are going to be your first symptoms, and beyond that, it's time to get a visual inspection down there.
Yeah. I'm not sure what they mean by cooling intake. Are they talking about an intercooler upgrade?
I think it's intercooler upgrades. Yeah, heat exchanger. The air blower.
Yeah. I'm not sure. We got to look into the RS5 B9 RS5 for as far as intercooling.
Yeah, the question
I don't believe we have anything currently.
Any help with cooling intake air temps in the B9 RS5? That's not something we have released yet.
I installed a dog bone mount billet insert on my Mark 7R and noticed some noise when turning my wheel. Some people report to get noise and some don't. Can you guys speak on that? I don't know what would cause noise turning your steering wheel.
No.
There's not much that affects the
engine
movement or position.
Yeah, if that upper insert isn't seated right, that's the only thing I can see where it may be like putting some preload on the part.
Yeah, we install and test all these products here. We install them in our service department right here. like pretty much every day.
Yeah.
We're installing these inserts in cars, and so we're very familiar with the NVH that they provide when properly installed.
Yeah.
I will add that we are baffled at times when customers contact us and tell us that they have a lot of NVH. I have never heard of this noise while turning the steering wheel, so I would assume that that's not related to that or related to the installation.
There's, I mean, you can also just kind of think of it. There's really nothing that should. I mean, that mount is just for the engine torquing.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with
There's
turning.
nothing to do with turning.
But I mean, I guess something could load in.
Something's twisting. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not sure what the correlation is there.
But I think there's some instances where when these inserts aren't installed correctly, if the insert touches any of the hard parts of the middle of the mount, it creates a vibration short circuit.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably what's happening in these rare cases when we hear about it. The issue for us is NVH is a very subjective term. There are ways to quantify it, but certainly not when we're talking to customers. So, a lot of times we just don't know, like, is what we think is more than reasonable, or do they think it's terrible? We can't say. So it's tough for us to address it. But
Yep.
I think that there's probably some issue with where things are not seated or installed correctly. And again, there's a short circuit. So whenever you install an insert, make sure that it's centered. Make sure that it's not hitting anything or bottoming out on anything hard.
Yeah. If it's twisted a little bit or something in there, there's a couple of plastic ingressions there that around the mount that might be coming in contact with, or might be really close to coming in contact.
It's really
as
easy.
you load up the motor one side or the other, it could be.
Yeah, it's really easy to avoid that, but I could see it happening.
Yeah.
So feel free to email tech support at 034motorsport.com if you'd like to discuss any further.
Yep.
What application would Street Sport Motorsport billet mounts be better in over the density line motor mounts? Typically, the Motorsport billet mounts are for when you want the absolute strongest mount. We've had a lot of success in the DAZA application with both the street and track sport, where you have people making 6, 7, 8, 900,000 horsepower. The fastest RS3 in the world runs these mounts, so they're just incredibly strong and durable. They will provide more NVH as a result of being so burly. We don't offer the density mounts in every application. For example, in the DAZA, we've chosen not to do them because there's so much power being made there, and we really feel like our billet motorsport solutions are the best. If you just have a daily driver street car that you want to just drive around in, and you want something a little better, stiffer, certainly better performing than the factory mounts, then the street density and then the track density, are the natural progressives. Now, track density is a very stiff, aggressive mount.
Yeah.
We haven't really made too many track density products for the newer cars.
No, we kind of transitioned from just
we probably
to the
won't.
motorsport stuff.
Yeah, we'll probably continue doing street density and then the billet motorsport stuff.
Yep.
But again, if you have any questions, hit us up. We'll be happy to chat with you. Do you guys offer a front strut brace for a Mark 7R? What are your thoughts on that? Is it needed? Thank you in advance. Well, you're welcome. We don't offer one yet. It's definitely something we want to do. It's tough for us to quantify on every application just how much a front strut tie bar is needed or benefits.
Yep.
We don't have the type of equipment that, say, an OEM would, or certainly
you basically need a chassis shaker and
you can
fun stuff.
You can put a car on a fixture and twist it and measure all kinds of data about how much it twists, what its resonant frequency is, things like that. Newer cars are very stiff, much stiffer than older cars, and every time a manufacturer comes out with a new chassis, they increase the stiffness. It's kind of like computer processing chips or whatever. It's like
the bell curve.
It's like just when you thought you could make it as stiff as you can, they make it 40% stiffer. It just never hurts.
Bell curve, Moore's law.
Yeah, right.
Bell curve.
It never hurts to add a strut tie bar. There's really no negative. It doesn't hurt to make that stiffer. And essentially, what a strut tie bar is attempting to do is keep the strut towers in their position. So when you set your alignment and you go into a corner, anything that squishes or moves from that static point is something that takes away from your alignment and isn't necessarily something you want. So if you go into a corner with a certain amount of camber, if that loads up and things move around, then you get even less camber and it hurts your handling. So one thing you do with the strut tie bar is you want to keep the strut towers from moving around. If the strut towers move, it changes your alignment settings. It also, can affect your steering input and how much the car actually turns when you turn the steering wheel. So you tie them together rigidly. They basically turn into like this trapezoid, and assuming the strut tie bar is actually stiff, there's some pretty bad ones out there that are real flexy. But if it's actually stiff, it helps. Our BA 3.0T strut tie bar is a perfect example of a strut tie bar that really locks in the whole front end and ties everything together. We do carry the Racing Line products now, and we're thrilled to partner with Racing Line. We stock a huge range of their products here at 034 Motorsport now. This is the rear body brace, which is essentially a strut tie bar for the back of the car. We have lots of these and other Racing Line products in stock right now. I know this is a very popular item. This is a very cleverly engineered product that installs with virtually no drilling or modifications to the car. Ties into some of the seatbelt, rear hatch, seat back connectors, which are very rigid, strong places to connect to. They're not superficial by any means. They're part of the vehicle's structure. And Racing Line came up with a really clever system to connect to those. So we will be coming out with our own versions of this product with the help of Racing Line. We will be sharing some of our engineering data with each other so that Racing Line can come out with Racing Line-y products and 034 can come out with 034-y products, and we will have even more to offer the market. So, but in stock, ready to ship. Hit us up if you need any front or rear strut tie bar products from Racing Line. Cool thing is, we don't have anything to compare to, but the Racing Line stuff is incredibly sexy and cool. When you pop your rear hatch, it's certainly much more interesting to look at than an old smelly gym bag. So this is definitely something I would put in my car, and it's a cool product that we're happy to sell and support. So, are there aerodynamic performance benefits using front splitters, rear diffusers, and rear spoilers?
Yes.
Yes, assuming that they're correctly designed, engineered, and implemented.
Yeah.
In the application.
That's a huge can of worms. If you're asking that question, it's going to be a tough one to answer. We have a whole discussion about coilovers, aerodynamic, and why not to run coilovers and how much work it is to get any benefit out of them. Aerodynamics is that on like a factor 100 more difficult to quantify and really dial in. So, yes, there are reasons to run all of the above in one form or another, or combinations of. So it usually comes down to a lot of data and testing and effort to try and figure out what you should be running and why.
And I'll make a broad generalization, sweeping statement that pretty much anything you see in the aftermarket is for looks. There is. Certainly in the Volkswagen Audi, I haven't seen anyone really developing or engineering actual tested aero parts. Now there's companies like APR, not the Alabama APR, but the rear spoiler company.
Right.
They're legit. They design rear wings that actually
there's a number of companies that make a lot of proper airfoils.
But you have to implement it properly, and if you don't, it will actually hurt your handling or hurt your speed around a track, for example.
And all of it is going to, depending on, diffusers maybe not, but any wing, anything like that is going to make you slower on like straightaways and things. It's a huge drag element on the vehicle. So it's got to be there for a reason. Otherwise you are going to be, typically slower if you're not doing it right.
And I would say typically there's just really no reason to implement aero on a street car. Certainly not if you want to, unless you're going to Mexico all the time,
around a lot of corners.
There's just not a lot of places on the street. Like, it's just not a streetcar mod. Aerodynamics requires airflow. Airflow requires speed.
Yeah.
Unless you're in an incredibly windy area, where you have 100-mile-an-hour winds. So
Yeah, if you're just driving into a headwind and need to stay stuck to the ground.
there's really there's no situation in the U.S. where a speed limit would allow you to implement the effects of aero. So generally, I think it's for looks, and it looks cool. It harkens to race car stuff, and if you want to do it, do something that looks good. If you're if you're driving on track and you want to implement the effects of aero and downforce, it can make your car a lot faster, but it's not easy to do.
That's a good point. We're not trying to say that aero doesn't work or you can't.
Oh, it
you
works
can't,
amazing.
Yeah, or you can't run it if you don't know everything about it. But just be aware that there's a lot that goes into it, and you can make things either more difficult to drive or slower, depending on how it's done.
Yeah, that's a good question. Though we haven't talked much about that, but it does require a lot of testing and engineering to get it right. And I would say even most race cars you see are nowhere near optimized. There's just kind of like a handful of really good aero engineers out there.
The truly optimized ones are either going to be the factory efforts or like F1 level stuff. Beyond that, it's not going to be incredibly far off from what your track day testing would be as far as data collection testing and just A/B testing out with different setups.
All right. CREC remote flash updates.
Yeah, so this is the late 3-liter motor that's in like the A6 and A7, some late S4s in Europe. We are working on it. I don't have any updates yet. We will have tunes for all of the octanes.
We'll do full support.
Yeah, that we offer now. So 91, 93, 100, 104, E40. So yep.
Yeah, we don't have an imminent release date, but we are working on it. Can you discuss the pros and cons of a single-piece billet crank pulley versus the harmonic down? Oh man, we had a whole discussion on it. Was it last week?
No, it's a couple weeks. Well,
maybe
touched on it last week.
Ago.
But we've gone over this I think a couple times. We can.
Have you guys haven't clipped that out?
No, it was like
it was either last week or the week before. We'll clip that out and provide it to you. But real quick. I went on and on for like 10 minutes.
Yeah, we'll keep this to like the 3-liter specific.
But it's ours is a solid billet piece. The factory harmonic dampener for the B5S4 is prone to failure. I think
you said B5S4 again.
Why do I keep saying that? B8S4. Yeah, I don't know. I don't, but apparently I do. The B8S4 factory harmonic damper has a center hub that's solid steel. And then there's a rubber vulcanized damper piece, and then there's a whole outside piece which resonates at a certain frequency, which is designed to cancel out any potential resonances in the crankshaft.
Yep.
And so when this goes this way, and so it kind of it cancels the movements out. Unfortunately, the B8S4 crank pulley is unreliable, so this rubber connection fails. And the whole outer piece, and it's partially because it's under load.
It's driving a supercharger in addition to all the other.
There's a lot of force on it, unlike most crank pulleys, and that are just spinning an alternator. Because the supercharger it probably takes 50 horsepower.
Oh, at least
that thing, So it rips off and comes apart. So we have for years run a solid billet aluminum one. Before we released ours, we ran the JHM ones, and so we have like 5 years of tuning experience with these pulleys, and we've seen no ill effects of it. So we recommend the solid billet designs like ours. There are some others that just kind of replace the outer piece.
Well, they don't replace it; they slot over it, and so you still got that piece that's potentially
you still are prone to failure, and we don't recommend that. That's not something that we'll do. So, but let's clip out that discussion because I went into how harmonic dampers work and the need, the supposed need for them and what's trying to be addressed. Can you discuss linear versus progressive lowering springs?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so basically, when a spring compresses, it has a rate that it compresses. So when you compress it a certain distance, it requires a certain force. Linear rate springs have a force that increases in a linear fashion to the distance it's been compressed. So if you compress it 1 inch, it's 50 pounds. If you compress it 2 inches, it's 100 pounds. The more you compress it, the compression curve is linear. A progressive spring, as the name suggests, means that as the spring compresses, it gets stiffer. The rate gets stiffer. Obviously, the compression gets stiffer the more it compresses, but the rate at which it increases is progressive or nonlinear. The reason progressive springs are so good for street-driven cars is that first, 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch of travel, you can make that softer. And then once things start compressing more, say when you go into a corner and the body rolls, the spring gets stiffer and resists compression the more it's being compressed. So that means you can have a relatively comfortable ride as you're just kind of cruising. But as the need for spring compression grows, the spring responds by being stiffer and providing more control in the situations that you want it.
Yeah.
So typically we run, many of our springs are progressive rate. And again, for a street car or not a race car, it's typically the best option. And also allows a lowering of the car without increasing the stiffness too much. So there's a lot of interesting stuff about springs, but a progressive spring, the thickness of the coil will get thinner or thicker depending on what you want it to do. So the softer coils are a smaller diameter, and so this spring steel is drawn out and kind of stretched out so that it goes from narrower to thicker in the part of the spring that's going to be the stiffest. So, yeah, it's hard to say. I think I have heard people say, "Oh, progressive rate springs are bad. You should only run linear, or vice versa."
Yeah, we have a combination of either depending on the application.
Yeah.
So it's tuned for the application.
That's right. Speaking of springs, someone's asking, do we have Dynamic Plus A5 S5 springs? Well, we don't for the B8. What have we determined for the B9? Yeah. So we do offer, our B9 springs do fit the A5 or the A4 or the A5 or the S4 or the S5. And so you can check out our website and see that. For B8, so we just got a B8 A5 and I've been driving it. First off, man, great car.
Yep.
Yep. I'm a little worried how much we can do to improve it because it handles really good. It has very low body roll. I don't know. We gotta dig into that car and see what they did with it, but I'm sure we can improve on it. Yep. But really nice car from the factory. This car was 15 grand. I mean,
no, it was like 13 or
13.
It's a lot of car for what it was.
I think out the door the check was like 14.
Something like that. Yeah.
Amazing car for that kind of money. I mean, really nice car. Quite luxurious, good creature comforts, and
it is the prestige levels.
Yeah, the prestige. It's a great car, but I think we really need to do some springs and sway bars.
Oh yeah, it'll be getting that treatment for sure.
Yeah, so we'll be working on that for the B8 and B8.5 A5 era cars. B9 S5 Sportback ResX. We're not sure. We'll confirm maybe you guys can confirm that and respond to them.
Yeah, that's a tough one to answer.
Some of those cars we're still not. We still haven't spent a lot of time with. If you delete the rear O2s, will it affect the tune or just the check engine light on a B8 S4? I mean,
it'll affect the tune as well if you just delete the rear O2s. I mean, because it uses if the tune's not set up for it, then it will. It does use the rear O2s for some cruise. Trimming. I mean, if you delete them, I guess it'll go into a full hard fault state. So, I don't know. I haven't tested exactly the ramifications of deleting it and driving around with a deleted set of sensors. So, but it's get a tune for it or put your sensors back in.
Yeah. Preferably get a tune like ours that actually deals with it well. 4.0T motor mount ETA. This is that time every week that we talk about.
Time for that question.
Nothing much has changed since last week. We are waiting on a revised prototype to test that we should have soon.
Yep.
So we want to release that product as quickly as possible, but not without it being properly engineered and tested and qualified. So appreciate your patience on that, but we will release the best product possible. What are your thoughts on nitrous, especially or specifically for the B8S4? Yeah, I said B8S4.
You did. You got it.
Nitrous, I don't know. I mean, I would say
The
nitrous is the same for kind of any application.
Yeah, it's such a open-ended question that you could literally run a 25 shot or a 50 shot and have almost anything be okay with it, or you could run a 200 shot and blow things up the first time you hit a button. So
yeah,
that's a really.
I kind of feel like it's like, you know, you're running track. You want to do the 100-meter sprint or whatever, and you're like, you know, should I take some cocaine right before I go? Like, I don't know. Maybe you'll run faster. Maybe, you know,
Maybe your heart will explode.
Yeah,
like-
maybe you'll die. You know, I'm sure you could probably. You know, I'd like to see Michael Phelps swim on some PCP and see how fast he can go. But
or
yeah, I mean,
which way he goes
I'm
maybe
just
would
not-
be a better question.
I'm just not a big proponent of nitrous unless you want to go faster.
And you know what you're doing
at all
you-
costs.
you've-
You know,
you are willing to deal with what it takes to run nitrous. So
because nitrous, and you can read up on it, but it's an incredibly volatile fuel.
power adder. Yeah.
It's just in general a volatile compound, and so you're kind of putting this thing in your motor that's just gonna combust really like out of control.
Yeah, the ECU has no regulation
Yeah.
over how it's.
It goes in the combustion
how it's
chamber.
operating.
Things explode. You don't necessarily know when they're going to explode, or when they're going to combust, or So again, it's the thing that it's a great way to add another 50 horsepower, 7,500 horsepower. There's no easier, cheaper way to do it, but it comes like with everything we always talk about compromises. It comes with the huge compromise of you're not really in control of it, and it's very unreliable. So I would say if reliability or safety is a concern, don't do it.
Right.
I would say if you have to go a little bit faster because your life depends on it, it's probably a great thing to do. But generally, we don't sell any products to support it.
We have an alarm going off next door.
Sounds like it.
Yep. Let me go check that out.
I have purchased the 034 B5 control arm kit and subframe bushings. Anything else you recommend to tighten the suspension up for launching? Yeah, so as long as you have front and rear subframe bushings. Also, if you're really serious about launching, I would recommend our rear differential brace. That's going to be much stronger than the factory piece, and it comes with stiffer density bushings in it, and so that will really keep your rear diff and assembly from loading up and torquing. As far as for launching, I mean, we do offer a host of B5 suspension components, but I think for launching, and then the mounts, if you don't have our various motor and transmission mounts, we offer a whole line of those products as well, which will greatly help your launches.
Yeah, keeping that drivetrain stiff is really the key, especially on older cars like that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you don't want things moving, torquing up, bouncing around. You want all that power going to the tires and getting that power to the ground.
Someone wants to know if our suction kit will work for their Stage 2 Audi S3. I would say it would work fantastically.
Stage 2, yeah. Yes.
No, you're in now. No, I'm out.
Everything okay over there?
The building.
Oh, it's next door? Oh, across?
Yeah, it's somewhere in one of the other complexes.
Yeah. What was it?
Insuction kit?
S3. Yeah, definitely. It's for the S3 as well. The application list should confirm that. Someone's asking, your product line is dwindling, not expanding for the B5. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, this is the conversation we have with our vintage i5 customers as well. There's less cars on the road. There's less people are spending money on them. It's been interesting to see. There are some smaller tuners that are really continuing
Still running with
to do some things with the platform. A lot of the stuff I see is just resource stuff from China, so not too impressive. I see a lot of our old B5 STK turbo kit has been knocked off in China
Yes.
and is being sold by all these companies now. So you guys are welcome for that. But yeah, I mean, if there's a new interesting product for the B5, we'll do it. We just released not too long ago our coil hold down product for the B5 2.7T. But the sales have been mediocre. There hasn't been a lot of interest, or it's too expensive for the
for us to support and
well,
stock.
The customers apparently think it's too expensive. It's a nice premium, highly engineered product, but people are looking for. I mean, there's a lot of 2.7 owners are buying, KO4 turbos for like $500 a pair, on eBay and stuff. So yes, the product line is dwindling. You'll continue to see that. We're a company that we design, engineer, and offer premium quality products. And, we have to charge a certain amount of money to make that whole cycle work. And selling really cheap stuff like on eBay is not something that we can do. So as those products kind of go through their life cycle, we do have to drop them and move on to the newer applications. So I think anyone with a B5 will find we probably still have as broad of a product line as anybody.
Yes.
It sucks. Like Tile has been dropping all their turbo options, for that. I assume because, the kind of hybrid billet wheel China turbo market is just really heated up over the last 5 years, and it's tough to sell a $4,000 turbo kit, $3,000 turbo kit these days. Nate and Javad, if there was a no holds barred project car you dream of doing, what is it?
I still want to get my hands around do a twin turbo V10 R8 someday.
That would be fun. Yeah, I definitely daydream about doing like a Daza R8 project. I think that would be
that'd be a really fun take on it,
fun,
because your overall weight would improve so much. The motor obviously can perform.
Yeah,
so,
that would be cool. I've always dreamed about doing an IMSA 90 GTO, build replica as well. The parts are out there.
Yep.
There are factory. I mean, if money was no object, you could buy everything you needed, and
that would certainly be high on the list of dream cars.
Build an aftermarket version, like a modern day version of one.
Yep.
So yeah, those are probably it. It's just it's tough because you could just there's a lot of cars you can buy and throw 0 through 4 catalog on it and have a world class very fast, fun to drive, reliable car. So. Speaking of which, someone's asking, what's your favorite street application, all-around favorite car to track and daily drive?
I mean, that's currently, for me, I'm going to say the B8 right now. Still, it's such a solid performer on track. It's instant power with the supercharger. It's super, capable and faster than a lot of the stuff out there with a couple of simple mods.
Just needs brakes.
It needs brakes, and then some suspension tweaks, and it's a lot of car on track for most people, and something you can obviously still put car seats in, take your family around, and daily drive all day long. So.
I'll go a little different direction and say I think an R8's it's a daily drivable track weapon.
Yep,
for sure. It's the kind of car that you can drive to the track. You can do some light modifications to it. It doesn't need a lot, and the car is so well balanced right from the factory. So if you can, what our product line will do is we'll play with that balance and dial it in more towards the aggressive, faster spectrum of handling.
Yep.
By aggressive, I mean less understeer, more neutral to oversteer at the right times. But yeah, that car is so good already. You make it a little bit better.
Yeah.
And you can take it a step further. You need track pads. That's about it.
Yeah, it's literally a daily drivable supercar.
But you do wheels and tires on it. And
Super easy to get in. It fires up every morning. It works. All this stuff works. It's comfortable. You can, I've driven it to LA and back and had no creaks or cracks.
excuse me. I think the main issue with the more accessible, cheaper Audis and Volkswagens is once you take them on track, they need brakes. Like we were talking about in Nate's car. So, I mean, I think even a B9A4 with our Dynamic Plus everything, you put brakes on that car, and it's a really fun car to drive. It's got the 7-speed DSG. The car is very well balanced for an Audi. It's really fun on track, and that's a great street car too. With a tune, you can be, almost 300 horsepower.
Yep.
And you can put a lot of tire under the car, and everything else is just our bolt-ons. So I think the B9A4 is a big underappreciated car right now, and they're getting really cheap too. I think you can buy them
really
for
are,
like 30 or less.
I know
20s.
Much less than 30.
That's a steal. That car for 20 something is a steal. So I really enjoyed ours. I daily drove that for years, and it was a great car. B8 S4 intake ETA. So the main holdup right now is, we sold what time? Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
we sold more than we ever imagined during Black Friday, and we ran out of air filters. So we don't just use like an off-the-shelf K&N air filter or whatever, or some cheap Chinese thing. We have our own air filter manufactured by a premium, very high quality air filter company.
Yep.
So we are scheduled to have a shipment of those land in the next few days, which means our manufacturing team will begin assembling the next round of intakes to ship out. So we've been quoting like a pretty long, kind of a under promise over deliver type deadline lately, but we should see some more intakes shipping in the next week or two. I'm not saying yours will, because it's all first come, first served as far as the inventory, but we are working very hard to ship those over the next few weeks. The ops team, contact the 034 Motorsport, are going to have the most current up-to-date status. So, we appreciate your guys' patience. It was heavily discounted.
Yep.
So for $258 some, it was a very good deal. So we appreciate you guys waiting and having patience for that. We're running down to a few minutes, but someone's asking, Daza has dual port injection. Can the older CEPD TTRS be upgraded to have dual injection? If so, would both the fuel pump and turbo need to be updated?
So, that's a lot of different questions. We are working on that with Colin's car here. It's been pushed a bit with all of the other activities we've got going on. So it can be added. It requires additional hardware to drive the injectors. The in-tank pump, it really depends on what fuel you're running and what your power target is. So I can't really answer that.
Yeah.
Turbo, no, you never need to upgrade the turbo. If you want more power, you can.
No, the turbo's the turbo. Yeah. So it's possible. We will have a product for this eventually. We don't right now.
Yep.
It's generally something that's needed for E85, type fueling.
Yes. Yep.
Any plans to enter the fully electric space?
Vehicle space.
Yes. There's not too much to say right now, but Racing Line does have an ID3 that we're currently evaluating with them, and we're looking more and more into e-golf type stuff as those cars. Some people are starting to look for those.
Yep.
Like our friend Jason Kamisa has started actually making his handle and go faster.
Yep.
So definitely something we'll be doing. I think we've talked to us a few times. What's really missing is the market of people who want to go fast with electric cars. So these type of questions are good. They show us more and more people are thinking about that. Mostly people buy electric cars for the environmental reasons or for the social status or whatever. Typically going faster isn't one of them.
Yep.
How about ETA on the new intake with the 3.5-inch tube to support the bigger throttle body?
for the B8. That's going to be coming once we release the throttle body. We don't have a throttle body to
Yeah,
compare it
well,
with yet. So,
that's actually done.
yeah, that's
you
it.
know,
We've already got hoses. for
The
that,
super duper charger intake is finished. We're just waiting for the super duper intake charger, so throttle body charger. So, yeah, that will all be released. That'll all be released at the same time.
Yep.
Any tips to keep the B6A4 rear end link nuts tight? I know it's they can be tricky to keep tight. Loctite's always been our recommendation. We've been, I think, selling that product for, I don't know, 7-8 years at least.
Yeah.
So feel free to email our tech support team, and they may have more tips for you. Tech support at 034motorsport.com.
Yeah, and I mean, getting the right amount of torque on it is
Torque's
critical.
the key. You got to get it, and use a nice new fresh lock, nylock nut. Make sure you're not reusing the nut. So, but that's all stuff tech support should be able to help with. So.
Yep.
All right.
I think we are pretty much.
I think we're
about
good.
time here.
So, thanks again for joining us. Thanks for all the great questions. Thanks for hearing us out.
Yep.
And we will see you next week, same time. All right. Cheers. Yep.